Assalamu alaikum everyone, welcome back to, I believe we're on day 9 of the Ramadan Dua Accelerator. Please forgive me as my voice is a little weak today, but I'm excited to get into this dua because I really feel like a lot of people need to hear this dua and memorize it because so many people are feeling so struck by a hardship and difficulty in their lives and want a way out, and this dua is a way out by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. So this dua is an incredible dua because it was said specifically by a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Prophet Ayyub alayhi salam. Prophet Ayyub was known as the prophet of patience, and in fact he's known as the prophet of patience not just by Muslims but by Christians as well. If you've ever heard, you might know the saying, oh, so and so has the patience of Job. Job is a biblical name for Prophet Ayyub. And so it reflects that Christians even understand that he was tried severely by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and showed such significant patience towards the trials and difficulties that he had to face. Usually I start off by sharing the verse and the translation, but I'm actually going to start us off with the story of Ayyub, and then we'll get to the dua at the end, inshallah. So Prophet Ayyub was a prophet that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala blessed with so many blessings. With such great health, he also blessed him though with things of this dunya materially in terms of wealth. He was extremely wealthy as a prophet. He had owned land, meaning he had an asset that was extremely valuable. He had many children, and interestingly enough, right, what does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say in the Quran? Al-malu wal-bunun, wealth and children are a test for you. They're a trial for you in and of themselves, even when everything is going good. But he had so many children. He was married. He had a beautiful, loving wife who was very supportive of him. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had a different plan for Prophet Ayyub. And what ended up happening was that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided to test Prophet Ayyub. And he tested him with several different tests, most of which, if we experience them for a matter of a day or less, we would collapse. But he tested him for many years. First, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tested Ayyub with a sickness and illness that led to such severe infections and breakdown of his skin, a lot of pain. It ended up causing weeping wounds that smelled. Ayyub ends up losing his land and his wealth and essentially ending up extremely poor. And his children are taken away, understood to be that his children passed away. So he's poor, childless, and extremely ill all at the same time. And it got to a point where he was so physically sick that he was unrecognizable. If someone was to look at him, they wouldn't even realize that this was a human being. Scholars debate how long Ayyub alayhi salam was in this condition. But while we wouldn't last 4 days, Ayyub was in this condition between possibly 7 years and 18 years, according to different scholarly accounts. One day, Ayyub's wife comes to him and says, "You're a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Why don't you make dua?" Right? Because the prophet's du'as are answered. "And why don't you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lift this burden from you?" Prophet Ayyub responds with a response that I think so many of us, when you hear it, it should shake you a little bit, because you think, this is Iman. This is true patience. This is a true essence of patience. And he says, Allah had gifted me with health, wealth, stability, children for 70 years. Could I not bear the difficulty for 70 years? Meaning he was almost shy to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to lift the burden because he had enjoyed so much goodness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy for so long. And so he continues again in this suffering. Well, the story goes, and we don't have these stories from the Quran per se, so scholars and Islamic historians pull details from different sources. But the story goes that at a certain point, Prophet Ayyub's wife has to sell her hair in order to be able to afford food, because obviously he didn't have any more money and she was working. But because her husband was so ill, people were very hesitant to employ her, so she ends up selling her hair. And as a result, Ayyub, seeing that, he decides to make the following dua, and we are going to go to the verse in the Quran. This is in Surah Al-Anbiya. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. وأيوب إذ نادى ربه أني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين. And the translation goes as followed. And remember Ayyub when he cried unto his Lord, truly affliction has befallen me, and thou art the most merciful of the merciful. Anta arhamur rahimin. So what is so interesting about this dua to me? What's so interesting is Ayyub doesn't ask for anything with this dua. He just expresses his pain. He just expresses the fact of what he's experiencing. And this is a huge misconception a lot of people actually have about dua, that dua is asking for something. No, dua comes from the root word to mean call, to call. Dua is talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you are asking him for something or not. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows deep down what Ayyub is hoping for. And the following verse, I'll just read the translation. And again, this shows how quickly Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answered. So we answered him and removed the affliction that was upon him. And we gave him his family and the like thereof along with them as a mercy from us and a reminder to the worshippers. So what ends up happening after the dua? He expresses his difficulty, he expresses his hardship, and out of the mercy, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes the affliction, and not only that, but gives back to him what was lost, including his wealth, his health, and his children, and additionally, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually gives him even more than that. Do you guys remember in different parts of this series where I said, ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ask freely, don't be shy, don't feel like you're not deserving, just ask, remember who you're asking? Do you see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought back what he had lost and gave him even more? Do you see how merciful Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is? And this is a prophet. Many of us would have thought, well, it's a prophet, he has to remain patient. And the interesting thing about it is that this Ayyub story, although we should not ask to be tested in this way, the Prophet ﷺ recommends that you do not ask to be tested with hardship, because we don't know how we're going to react to the hardship. We don't know which way our faith will go with the difficulty. We should be asking Allah, Allahumma inni as'aluka al-afu wal-afiyah, to not ask for hardship, but the Prophet ﷺ told us to ask for al-afu wal-afiyah, which is pardoning, and afiyah meaning wellness. But what's really interesting is that this is a narrative shift in the understanding of Muslims and non-Muslims across the world. Because, and even the people of Ayyub said something similar, the idea was, if Allah loves you, then he favors you with things of this world, right? He makes you rich and he makes you healthy and he gives you a big family. And that's what they thought. And so when they saw a prophet like Ayyub, the people of Ayyub saw a prophet like Ayyub being tested and afflicted in this way, they literally basically said, there's no way you could be a prophet and that Allah would favor you. Look at your condition. And as Muslims, we don't believe that what you've received in this world is a reflection of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's love to you whatsoever. And in fact, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in certain parts of the Quran that sometimes he gives just as a means of testing people, and those who are defiant and they're fasiqeen and they're disobedient and misguided, that which is given actually becomes a means of further misguidance to further their punishment. It has nothing to do with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and his love. It actually has to do everything with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's justice and his punishment or adab. And on the other side, that there are people that could be severely tested who are the most beloved to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is using that test and that difficulty to expiate their sins, to raise them in ranks so that they can attain the highest level of Jannah. Think about what's going on in the world today. Right? Do we not see how many people have come to Islam because of the example of our brothers and sisters in Palestine? Do you not see how many people have entered into the deen because of their patience and what they're enduring? I truly, truly hope that you guys, if you're struggling and if there's hardship in your life, or if maybe it's not now, but it comes later down the road, that you remember the story of Ayyub. You remember this dua. This is a dua that I actually said personally during the hardest times of my life. And I saw Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala answer the dua for me. And I remember just thinking, like, if I'm going to ask Allah for relief from it wasn't just a difficulty, but these difficulties that I'm in, then I'm going to use the words of our prophets. And so I looked at all the prophets who endured hardships and what they said, and I repeated those duas. And this is just a bit of a plug here, but for Muslim women who are watching this who have endured hardships and as a result have suffered trauma, please know that I have a trauma group coaching program that I absolutely adore, that's absolutely transformative. You can you can see testimonials on my website about it. It is my passion project because of what I had to go through and the way healing trauma through an Islamic framework and a scientific framework helped deliver me from such difficulty. I wanted to package that and give that to other Muslims. If you are interested, the link is in my bio to sign up for the waiting list. It is an investment, but it is an investment that I think is so worth it because of the level of freedom, of safety in your own self, of connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that it brings you, and tools that you then are able to use for the literal rest of your life and teach to others around you. Again, the link is in the bio for that. I will continue, inshallah, to be creating content around healing and healing trauma specifically. On my channel, there is a show that I have called Faithful Healing. I go live every Thursday at 12 p.m. and we talk about difficult situations and I coach Muslims through these hardships, a lot of them relating to trauma as well. So if you're interested in more content around that, then check out the live show. You can find episodes under the live tab as well on my channel. Assalamu alaikum, and I will see you guys in the future.